Hi guys, thanks for joining me for another Saturday morning of story time. Okay, I've got 5 stories for you this morning and they're all pretty good. The background video that you're looking at is actually part 2 of the video I shot last week where I was sat outside Nana Plaza on Sukhumvit Soi 4. The first half of the video was taken in the early evening, very early. It was just dusk, and today it's later on in the evening, but it was a very rainy night. It was very wet, but it'll give you something good to look at anyway. Right, let's jump into the first of 5 stories.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Hi Peter, I love your channel and have been watching for the past 5 or 6 months. I always listen to your videos when I'm in the bath. I got back from Thailand last Tuesday and this is my story. I have been watching videos of Thailand since my early 20s but always had a fear of flying, so I never made the trip. However, I decided in January this year to book the flight as I was now 30 and not getting any younger. I booked 4 weeks from May 21st to June 18th. I must say I had such a great time in Bangkok and Pattaya. I love Terminal 21 in Bangkok. I visited there every day and went to Pier 21 food court and sometimes to the cinema on the top floor. I am not a big drinker, so I like to find other hobbies, as drinking more than 2 days in a row makes me really sick. I don't know how some of these small petite Thai ladies can drink so much and every day. My first few nights I pretty much just used Thai Friendly to get some nighttime aerobics with some pretty ladies. I did notice though that the girls in Bangkok are a bit more expensive than they are in Pattaya. But anyway, they provided a great service and were both worth every penny. After a couple of nights I met a match off Tinder. She was lovely. We spent a lot of time together. She had a nice car and a really good job, so I knew she wasn't just after my money. I really liked her and we ended up going to Koh Larn and Koh Chang together. We split the cost of the hotels and everything. She was just a nice girl who loved to travel and have fun. She did have a sad story though. A few years before she met me, she had a partner from France who moved to Thailand to be with her. They were very happy and travelled the world together, but he ended up collapsing at work one day in Thailand and he died. Then, when she got his phone, she found out that he had been cheating on her with multiple women, including some ladyboys. But I just enjoyed the time I had with her. We made some great memories and I'm glad I met her. Eventually, I left her and went off to Pattaya to have some more fun with the ladies, as it was my first trip to Thailand as an adult and I wanted to enjoy it to the fullest. I did go to Thailand as a kid with my dad, but it's totally different when you're an adult. I must confess, I ended up sleeping with at least 20 women without wearing protection, which I know is dangerous. However, I am allergic to the material that the protection is made from, so what choice do I really have? It did come back and bite me because I got quite sick. I was bedbound for 3 days. Luckily, a Thai lady I met next door with whom I had some aerobics a few nights before was so much help. I physically couldn't leave my room, so she brought me medicine and food. She was so nice and eventually walked me to see the doctor, which luckily was not more than a 5-minute walk from my hotel. I didn't have any money at this point because my mum sent me a daily allowance for safety in case I lost all my money or spent it all while I was drunk. I have been known to not be the cleverest when drunk at times, to say the least. Anyway, the doctor checked me over, gave me some meds, and the bill was 950 baht. The Thai girl paid it for me and I paid her back when my mum woke up back in England and sent me my daily allowance. I really appreciated that girl. She was such a great help to me, and I don't know what I would have done without her in my time of need when I was so sick. Other than that, after a couple of more days, the antibiotics kicked in and I was back fighting fit and enjoyed the rest of my holiday. I loved Soi 6 and all the little bars around Soi Lanki. It was the best decision I ever made to finally get the courage to go on a plane to Thailand, and I'm booking to go back in November. I must say though, it was very depressing having to come back to England. I can't wait to get back. Well, I would honestly recommend that anybody who does go to Thailand always wear protection. It's a very dangerous game you're playing if you don't. I haven't heard of somebody having their mum send them an allowance every day. That's quite a strange one, but each to his own. Right, let's jump into story number 2. Here is a true story of my life finding a girlfriend in Thailand. My name is John. In 2016, my long-term relationship finally came to an end. After all I had been through, I felt like never dating another woman again. As the months went by with no lady companion and hearing about how nice Asian ladies are from friends, I decided to try a few Asian dating sites. I found most of them a waste of time and just wanted money for very little reward. There was one site, however, named Thai Friendly, where I found I could communicate with Thai ladies without any outlay. I became friends with 4 ladies over the age of 30. 2 were teachers and 2 worked in factories. We would communicate on the Line app most days, and I made it clear I just wanted a friend at this stage in my life following my long-term relationship breakdown. All the ladies seemed genuine, not asking for money, and one even sent me a shirt. As time went by, they met other men online who were ready for relationships, so they lost interest in me apart from one lady. Her name was Noi. Noi came from a small province. Her parents were poor farmers growing crops and rearing cows. They had 9 children, 6 girls and 3 boys, Noi being the 3rd youngest. Her mother died when she was 9 years old, leaving her father and other family members to care for Noi and her siblings. Noi was a bright girl, so when she left school, her father said, "You should go to college and get a scholarship so you can support your other siblings who have had very little education." Her father borrowed 100,000 baht from the bank for her scholarship. Noi had only completed 1 year at college when her father died, so she had to prematurely finish her scholarship and find work to support herself and pay off her father's loan. Her older siblings and family members took over running the family farm. She got a job at an electronics company working long hours far from her home. She would send any spare money back home after paying her loan installments to help her siblings, just keeping enough for rent of her small room and basic living. She would occasionally go back home to help with the rice harvest and her siblings' weddings. One of the friends at the factory, named Nit, had joined Thai Friendly and was communicating with a man from Scotland named Arthur. Noi, having only had a brief encounter with a man at college because her father had told her that she needed to save herself for the man she loved, was curious about this site. Nit persuaded Noi to join Thai Friendly and she started communicating with me. We got on well and soon moved to video calls and talking every day. By 2018, while her siblings married apart from one elder sister, Noi left the factory wanting to do something else. Nit also left the factory to start a new life with Arthur, getting married and building a new house to start a guest house business in Thailand. Noi decided to take a course in traditional Thai massage. After finishing the course and qualifying, Noi and her new friend named May decided to travel to Phuket and found work at a traditional Thai massage shop. Some days they had few customers and they only had a small basic wage plus a bonus, depending on the type of massage they gave customers. Some days they earned very little money. May decided to work in a massage shop with happy endings to increase her income. There, May met Jan, a man from Norway who would visit her every day during his holiday in Phuket. They started a relationship and she has moved to Norway and married Jan. Noi, now regretting leaving the factory, continued working at the traditional Thai massage shop, earning little money and unable to send money back to her elder sister, causing a strained relationship between them. When the pandemic hit and everywhere shut down, Noi went back to the family homestead and stayed with her elder sister in their parents' old house. I was able to carry on working during the pandemic, so I sent small amounts of money for essential items. At the time, my brother and I were caring for our elderly mother who had broken her hip and had dementia, so it was a very trying time for me. After the pandemic, Noi wanted to start a small business making mats, which a friend was doing in another province. I sent her some money for purchasing the equipment and converting a farm building into a workshop, and her family helped her with this. Her friend came and demonstrated how to make mats, and they would sell them at the local market for a small income. When the pandemic finished, I promised Noi I would visit her in Thailand as soon as I could. I had a very bad start to the year in 2023. My mother passed away in January and my best friend in February. After finalising my mother's estate that year, I was finally free of commitments and determined to go to Thailand. In January 2024, I renewed my passport and booked my flight to Bangkok for March. I told Noi and she was filled with joy. I booked a hotel near Victory Monument Station so we could use a SkyTrain for travel. A few days before I was due to arrive, Noi travelled for 9 hours by bus to Bangkok and stayed with her niece in a small room. On the Sunday before I was due to arrive, they travelled by train to find the hotel and go to the airport to get familiar with it. Both had never travelled by train before, so this was a new experience. Finally, the day arrived. My brother dropped me off at the airport and I was soon boarding the plane to be Thailand bound. I was filled with nervous excitement at 61 years old. This was the first time for me on an aircraft, so I thought, what the hell, I might as well do it, big style with a trip to Thailand. I arrived at Suvarnabhumi airport without incident, breezed through the immigration, collected my luggage and went straight to the meeting point. There was Noi holding a card with my name on it. We hugged and a lady she met took a photo of us. We had a coffee and both said, wow, we finally met in real life after many years of talking online when most couples would have given up long ago. We got the airport rail link to Pattaya station, changed to the SkyTrain to Victory Monument Station, and within 10 minutes walk we were at the hotel. I was feeling shattered after the long flight, so we both had a shower and talked in the room. I could see that Noi was nervous. After all, at the age of 43, she was staying with a man in the same room and bed for the first time in her life. I said we will just talk for now and sleep to put her mind at ease. The next day, we walked around the local area, trying the local street food, getting rabbit cards for the SkyTrain, and enjoying the well-managed park. In the evening, we had dinner at a local fish restaurant, with me giving much amusement to Noi and the waitress by trying to use chopsticks for the first time. When we got back to the room, we kissed for the first time, much to the excitement of Noi. Over the fortnight, I showed her more things to try in the bedroom department, and she was getting more confident each day until we were doing full-blown aerobics and enjoying this new experience. She had now found a new pleasure in life. We used the train for visiting many planes, and one time we were coming back from Jim Thompson House and two bemused-looking Thai ladies were asking Noi which train to Asok. Without hesitation, she said my boyfriend will know. So I ended up showing them the route on the station map, thinking, here's a Farang, first time in Bangkok, showing Thai ladies directions. Wow. We also had a great fun spotting ladyboys, with Noi having a far better eye than me. We found the tourist boat on the river a very enjoyable way for visiting places, including the Grand Palace, Wat Arun and Koh Sun Road, and Icon Siam by the river being our favourite mall. One evening, we went to a local restaurant for dinner and the menu was in Thai, so I said to Noi, you order me something with chicken and rice. The restaurant was quite busy with Thai locals and one Western couple sitting near us. The chair had skirts down to the floor. The couple finished their meal and left. I was enjoying my meal when suddenly something black ran out from where the lady had been sitting and went under the next chair. It was a rat. Then a few minutes later it moved to the next chair, but this time Noi and a waitress spotted it. I pointed to where the rat had gone, looking at the waitress. She smiled and carried on with her work. Noi said, it's just a rat, they live in the walls of her parents' house. I must add the restaurant was very clean and the food well prepared, and seeing a rat seemed to be no big deal. It didn't really bother me either, but I dread to think what would have happened if the rat had come when the lady had been sitting on the chair. We had an amazing time in Bangkok, and I was so pleased to see Noi so happy with all the new experiences she had. This humble, hard-working lady had met her Farang boyfriend, visited many places in Bangkok for the first time, and discovered the joys of aerobics all in the space of 2 weeks. The time came to say goodbye at the airport, me going back to the UK. Noi going back to the family farm. Our lives will never be the same again. Next time I go to Thailand, I will visit her home and her family. It's nice to hear a success story, but whether it will continue to be a success, because it is a long distance relationship, hopefully the guy will send in another story and let us all know. But just one point on the rat there. If I'd been sitting in a restaurant and a rat came out from the chair next to me, that's it. I'd have been gone. I wouldn't have been able to eat the rest of my meal. Very, very timid of things like rats and cockroaches. Hate them, actually. Right, let's jump into story number 3. Hey there, I'm Jeff, born in Mexico. I now live in Pasadena, Texas with my family. I've been married for over 20 years and have adult kids. I work in the petroleum industry, and a while back I got the chance to work in Thailand for a year. I thought, why not? A break from routine and some extra cash. So off I went to Pattaya, Thailand. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, but I swear I had good intentions. I mostly avoided the bar scene. There I was, almost 50, surrounded by young, beautiful women everywhere, and even at work. One of them, let's call her Sai, kept smiling and flirting with me. She spoke great English, and I found myself getting more comfortable around her. Imagine that, a girl in her 20s interested in a guy pushing 50. She seemed so easy to talk to and frankly eager to spend time with me. I thought some friendly flirting couldn't hurt. She worked under me, so it seemed harmless. While at work, I spent a lot of time teaching her how to do her job. Quite frankly, what I taught her while on the job is probably why she is employable now. We went to dinner one night and she opened up about her long-distance relationship with a younger Australian guy in Bangkok. One day, when she was very drunk, she told me a lot of things she never mentioned again. He was some big shot music engineer who worked with some very famous artists. I told her about my family. We were bonding, right? A few dinners later, we'd had a bit to drink and ended up at my place. One thing led to another, and wow, she knew exactly how to turn me on. She was tall, thin, model-like, and seemed to have wanted me from day one. I felt a twinge of guilt, but thought, I'm a man, I'm away for a year, maybe this is what I needed. Our relationship grew. It was as simple like having a young replacement wife. We worked together, had an amazing aerobics at night, and shared our thoughts and dreams. We would tell each other we were in love. When my wife called Sai, stayed quiet. When her boyfriend called, I did the same. The aerobics were mind-blowing. Back home, my wife and I barely did it twice a year, and I had ED issues. I felt like less of a man, but with Sai, everything worked perfectly. Maybe it was her youth, her enthusiasm, or how she made me feel. Whatever it was, it felt good. Then one day, during an aerobic session, the protection broke. That's when Sai dropped a bombshell. She had HIV. I was terrified. I got tested repeatedly and even started looking at houses in Thailand, thinking I might have to leave my wife if I tested positive. It wouldn't be so bad to be married to a girl who looks like a model and treats me like the greatest man in the bedroom. Looking back, I realised I had some suspicions about Sai's motives from early on. That's why I started decreasingly recording many of our interactions, both conversations and intimate moments. I told myself it was just in case I needed to protect myself later. And you know what? I was right to be cautious. Sai could be self-serving at times. Don't get me wrong, she was incredibly affectionate and made me feel amazing. But there were moments when I would catch a glimpse of calculation behind her eyes. It was like she was always thinking about what she could get from our relationship. She would be nice one moment and then in other moments tell me about her struggles, and I would just want to help. Then after I helped her, it would be too late. I already did what she wanted. One thing that really stroked my ego was how complimentary she was about my looks, if you know what I mean. I figured the Australian guy would have made it not a shock, but after being with her, I felt like I was humongous. She would say things my wife hadn't said in years. And in the bedroom, let's just say Sai was open to things that had long been off the table in my marriage. It was intoxicating, feeling desired like that again. After a year, I returned to the US, keeping our memories close. We would call each other every now and then, and I would send her money when I could. I know what you might be thinking, that I was just being used for the money. But it wasn't like that. Sure, I gave Sai about $1,000 a month, but I knew girls like her, especially the model types, could easily get $150 a day in Pattaya. Instead, Sai was with me all month. She would make me dinner, shower with me, and take me on trips in her car. It felt real. She loved me, I'm certain of it. But I have learned that even real feelings can fade when you're gone. Urgency becomes more important, and who I was to her heart didn't matter anymore. 6 months later, my wife confronted me about Sai. Turns out some American friend of Sai's had spilled everything to my wife. She found a picture of us, learned about the money I had sent her as well. Island vacations together, medical care I received, and that Sai nursed me back to health. It was rough, but being a good Mexican woman, she decided to work things out. Later, Sai filed a report with my employer claiming I had abused my position. I always believed that it was either her ex-boyfriend found out or some new guy had a reason to get at me. Luckily, I had evidence providing everything was consensual because I had recorded so many things. Still, my career took a hit, no more overseas assignments for me. I kept my job, but essentially I will not advance much in management. So here's my warning. If you're working in Thailand, be careful. Don't let yourself get into a relationship there. They often just want money or to take advantage of you. I was a fool, blinded by a pretty face. I've seen recent pictures of Sai online. She's aging fast, and knowing what's in her heart, I'm glad I didn't stay when she begged me to. Learning from my mistakes, folks, it's not worth the risk. So I know a few guys here in Thailand who have got long-term girlfriends, and they do give them a little bit of money, maybe, I don't know, 5,000 baht a month or something, and it's just to kind of cover travel costs and when they pick bits and pieces up from the supermarket. The girls haven't asked for the money, the guys just help them out because they're on low salaries or they're not working and they need pocket money, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. A lot of people do that. But, you know, when a woman wants $1,000 a month to stay with you, I mean, that's got to be... You know, there's only one reason for it, isn't it? It's just so much money. It's almost a salary, isn't it? Just my personal thoughts on it. Right, okay, let's jump into story number 4. And just to let you know, the last story is a very, very short story. Firstly, may I please offer my thanks for the hours and hours of entertainment I've received from your channel. It's been a real joy being part of the journey so far and to listen to all the fantastic stories that come in from around the globe. I have been listening for 4 years now, and I finally thought I would offer some stories to the collection from several visits to the kingdom. I first visited the kingdom in about 2015. I went with some seasoned campaigners whom I'd worked with for a while. I was very comfortable going to Thailand with people who spoke so highly of their experiences. They knew every shortcut, lurk and perk, and I have visited about 7 times. We stay around Patong. At the time of my first visit, I was about 28 years old. I have not visited since the COVID pandemic due to having financial commitments. The aforementioned seasoned campaigners consist of a core group of 5 or 6 guys with some others coming in and out on different trips. I would like to share some of the more humorous stories from the trips, if I may. The first highlights the kindness and thoughtfulness that many Thais possess. Story 1. A group of 5 of us had gone for a visit. This time, Rob, the most experienced campaigner, had brought his then wife, Sarah, whom we also worked with, and their 3-year-old daughter. It was planned that we would spend some time in Khao Lak as well as our normal trip to Patong. This was really a family-style trip that I was tagging in on. Sarah had got organised some of her girlfriends and their partner's husband's kids to be in Khao Lak. I was really flattered to be asked to join them, as it was more of a family-type trip. I was excited to see a new part of Thailand, that being Khao Lak. One night, around 12 to 15 of us enjoyed a meal at a nice seafood restaurant. The young guys behind the bar were offering us a free shots, which were consumed with gusto. At the time, I thought this was a little strange, as free shots had seldom a thing in Patong. I understand I was around new people and didn't want to embarrass myself. I was also aware that I had been consuming several 70 baht big bottles of Chang while watching the world go by at a quiet bar all afternoon. At the time, I used to drink a bit and had much more tolerance to drink than what I do now. A few shots on top and a steady afternoon session would have knocked me about, especially as I was limiting how many I had. The night progressed, and after the meal, some of the people with families went back to the hotels. There was a nice little bar that I and some others were at the night earlier. I decided with some others that I would go back there to see out the night. As some of your listeners would know, Khao Lak is not a full swinging party until all hours like Bangla Road. However, there are some nice little spots that can accommodate a night owl. After a few hours, the others decided to go back home. I decided to stay as it wasn't too far back to the resort. I was enjoying a conversation with a guy from near where I live, and the changs were going down well. It turns out the changs flowed a little too well. I was clearly getting a bit drunk. The bar staff looked like they were preparing to pack up until a group of middle-aged German guys piled in. It came time to settle up, and I got up off my stool and could barely stand. I tried to talk and the words weren't making sense. I was drunk. I went to pay for my tab and my card wasn't working. I had accidentally submerged it in water and didn't have enough cash to settle the full amount. I asked if there was an ATM or a cash point, as you Poms call it, nearby so I could retrieve the difference of my debt. I knew my card would work in the ATM as it had already worked after the water damage. The staff were more than happy for me to leave and come back to pay, although that's not what happened. I have no recollection of this, but I indeed did find the ATM and withdraw the cash. There was nobody around as this was the only bar still open, which was slightly off the main strip. The staff got worried about me and went looking for me. They found me passed out with a handful of money near the ATM. They managed to get me into the Mama San's car, which I vaguely remember as I thought I was in a cab, and hand me over to the reception of the resort I was staying at, who in turn managed to get me back to my room. I woke up to several welfare checks from Rob and some of the others, feeling like absolute death. This wasn't just a hangover, I was really unwell. As I was going through the night, I recalled 3 shots and the fact that it wasn't exactly top shelf aged scotch that they were giving out. I remember at the time thinking it was really rough tequila. It had a really acidy smell. Could it have been ethanol-based spirits to encourage us to drink, spend more? I thought, snap out of it, you got too drunk, you idiot. Plain and simple. I went back to sleep, and in between vomiting all day, I didn't rise again until 6 p.m. when I had dinner with some of the others. Over dinner, a few of the others who finished up early the night before were saying how dreadful they had felt all day. After further discussion, it was identified that everybody who had taken a free shot from the night before was ill to some extent. Were we set up with the shots? I guess we will never know. After dinner, I returned to the bar from the night before. As I arrived, the staff were all laughing and told me about the state they found me in at the ATM. I initially thought they were having me on, but it all was true and collaborated by the reception staff at the resort. Needless to say, I fixed up my existing tab from the night before and gave them a generous tip for their kindness towards me in a very vulnerable state. Story 2. Like I mentioned earlier, the guys I travel with know all the lurks. They can be quite particular with the bars and restaurants they prefer. This is often a positive as they have developed positive relationships and a rapport with the owners. This one particular morning, 6 of us had attended one of the preferred restaurants for breakfast. After ordering, a very dishevelled Russian guy of about 25 years old walked in. He took a seat, ordered and started talking to himself. He continued rambling. Initially, we all quietly talked to each other about the guy. As each minute went on, the guy's ramblings got louder and louder. I can't speak Russian, but it seemed he was talking about some troubling things. I could see that all the female staff of the restaurant had also gone from seeing the humorous side to starting to get concerned. The concern only grew when he started banging on the table with cutlery. Not long after some of our meals had arrived, which attracted the attention of the Russian, he was upset by this, protesting for some reason, despite arriving and ordering after us. He went on to sit at the spare chair at our table. It was clear he had not been home. He smelled like a sailor, and it was quite clear he was under the influence of some other substance and not just alcohol. He had a 1,000-yard stare and fire in his eyes. I could sense that my friends were as concerned as I was. The mood among our group almost went into business mode. What I mean by that is that all the group were current, former or retired police officers. As his behaviour kept escalating, we all managed to make eye contact with each other. This confirmed that we were all on the same page. I noticed he still had a fork in his hand and he transferred his grip on it to more of an overhead hand grip. He was squeezing tight with the whiteness of knuckles. One of the others did a great job of talking to him without raising his voice or being aggressive in his approach. He was able to convince him to leave without further incident. I'm sure you would agree that this was the most favourable outcome for all concerned, not least of all the restaurant staff. If we had taken some physical restraint, no doubt the local Royal Thai Police would have become involved, and as you are aware, they arrest everybody and work it out later. This would have meant we would have missed out on our day. We often joked about what happened to that Russian guy. We reckon he either ended up arrested or dead. Thanks for indulging me, Peter. I'm planning on heading back next when I save up enough cash. Great story there. So there is, there is mental people, real mental people walking about, foreigners as well as Thais. And I'll give you an example of something that happened to me just 2 nights ago. I was visiting a friend and I decided to take the BTS, the SkyTrain. And a guy walked in. He was a foreigner and he looked kind of Middle Eastern, but he was dressed quite smartly. But all of a sudden, he just started coming out very, very loudly with quite rude phrases. And he kind of got, the train was packed and all the Thais around him were looking at each other and were looking very nervous. And I can't repeat here what he was saying because of YouTube's strict policies, but he was swearing and he was coming out with phrases like he was talking to somebody. I'd like to give you an example of the phrase, but I can't. You have to use your imagination. But he was very loud and the whole carriage could hear him. And I really think he had some kind of mental issue because it just wasn't normal. I was the only other foreigner on there, so I decided to get out of it. So what I did on the next station, when the doors opened, I got out, walked along the platform, and I got into another carriage about 3 carriages up. But you've got to be careful when dealing with people anywhere, especially in Thailand, because I have seen several foreigners here who they seem to be very unstable. Okay, let's get into the 5th and final story. This is a very short story, and just to let you know, none of these stories that I've read today are repeats. I haven't read any of these out on my channel before. I don't know if you've heard them on other channels. There's a lot popping up now, but they are new to my channel. Story 5. This is just a short story of my bizarre experience in Thailand, which I did not include in my first email to you. As I was sleeping one night at a hotel in Bangkok with my Thai girlfriend, which I met on Tinder and was recently mentioned in my last email to you, I got woken up by a knock on the door at around 3 o'clock in the morning. It was a hotel security speaking in Thai I did not understand. Luckily, I had my Tinder girlfriend with me. She got up and said the most frightening words to me. The police are waiting to speak to you downstairs because you have an underage girl in your room. Wow! I was in shock. I could not believe it. So we got dressed, went downstairs. There were 2 policemen with guns in their holsters waiting for me. I was so scared. Luckily, my Thai girlfriend, who was in her mid-30s, showed the police her ID. They took our photo and my girlfriend and the police carried on speaking in Thai, which felt like forever. Eventually, we were allowed to go back to the room and that was the end of it. Apparently, someone reported my room number for bringing a young girl into my room. My short-time Tinder girlfriend, who I went to the islands with, did not look in her 30s. She looked a lot younger, so maybe somebody just made that mistake, but she definitely did look no younger than 18. But what a strange experience that was. It was lucky, and my only time having to deal with the police, and my last. It was not a nice experience to say the least, but other than that, everything else about my trip was amazing. And that's it, a very short story indeed. This is one of the reasons that when you go back to a hotel with a girl, she has to leave her ID with the reception staff. They need a record of who's in the room, and it's to protect her as well as to protect yourself from theft. But the other thing is, I'm sure the reception staff will always check the age on the ID that's left with them in reception. And if the girl was underage, I'm sure they would most definitely call the police. It's not a good thing to do, taking somebody underage back to a hotel. Wouldn't recommend it. And, right, guys, that's it. 5 good stories this week. Thanks to everybody who sent them in. Once again, if you're sitting on a story, send it in. I'll make it anonymous, and you too can hear your story read out right here on Thailand Bound. Thanks again, guys, and I'll be back with some more stories next week.